কংগ্ৰেছ পাৰ্টিৰ জ্যেষ্ঠ নেতা শ্ৰী জয়ৰাম ৰমেশজীৰ ফাইনেন্স বাজেটৰ ওপৰত উত্থাপন কৰা বক্তব্য আজিৰ এই ভিডিঅ'টোত আপোনালোকে চাব পাৰিব। তেওঁ তাতে 4টা কুৱেশ্যন উত্থাপন কৰিছিল বাজেটৰ ওপৰত। আহা আমি শুনি।
4 questions to which I was expecting answers from the budget, but for which I am still seeking the answers. The first question is, why is private investment still sluggish? In spite of very steep tax cuts, in spite of production-linked incentive schemes, in spite of constant encouragement by different spokespersons on behalf of the government, private investment, which is key to increasing economic growth, is still stagnating at somewhere between 20 to 25% of GDP. If you look at the trajectory, private corporate investment used to be at this level. It fell over the last 8 years. It then started growing up, but it has stabilized at a level which is far lower than what it used to be 10 years ago. Sir, without private investment, Indian economy will not flourish. It will not boom. We have to increase private investment. And the first question is, why is private investment simply not picking up? The rate of private investment. Private investment is of course increasing, but as a proportion of GDP, private investment is still very sluggish, and we are not going to hit the 8% growth target unless we are going to stimulate private investment. Now, there are various theories why private investment is not growing up. It is not growing up because of an atmosphere which is not conducive to private investment. Private investors are actually moving abroad and seeking citizenship of different countries. The economy is going through oligopolization in different sectors of the economy. But whatever the reason, I think this is a question that the Honorable Finance Minister will have to address, not today, but in the context of the next budget in February or thereabouts next year. So the second question, why is manufacturing as a proportion of GDP falling? Now, we are all in agreement. There can be no argument that manufacturing must flourish, must deepen in our country. But instead of increasing, manufacturing as a proportion of GDP has actually come down from something like 16.5% of GDP to about 14.5% of GDP. And I'll give you one simple example, which is a very telling example. In 2013-14, garment exports from India was $15 billion. In 2023-24, garment exports from India, $14.5 billion. So garment exports today is lower than the garment exports 10 years before. And today what has happened? Vietnam's exports are 2 times that of India. And Bangladesh has exported $45 billion of garments last year. So I would like the Honorable Finance Minister to ask the question, not today, in the context of the next budget, why is manufacturing as a proportion of GDP falling, particularly in labor-intensive sectors of the economy? Sir, the third question, why is private consumption not growing? Last year, private consumption grew only by about 4%. Now, private consumption is a locomotive of economic growth. Why is private consumption not growing? Private consumption is growing only at the top income levels. Sir, today, over 50% of all automotive sales in India are SUVs, the sports utility vehicles. It's no longer the entry Maruti vehicles, it's all the sports utility vehicles. Now, what does this show? It shows that there is consumption, there is purchasing power, but it is concentrated at the higher income levels. And there is no mass consumption taking place of mass consumer goods that will drive economic growth. So I would like the Honorable Finance Minister to again ponder over this question, why private consumption, private mass consumption is not growing. Finally, sir, my final question, why are wages stagnant in this country? Government's own data, economic survey's own data shows that real agricultural wages, inflation-adjusted agricultural wages, have fallen by 1% over the last 10 years. And the periodic labor force survey of the government shows that across the sectors, salaried class, self-employed, average real earnings have remained stagnant. Now, if wages remain stagnant, purchasing power will remain stagnant. If purchasing power remains stagnant, consumption will remain stagnant. So to summarize, Mr. Chairman, the economy has 4 engines of growth, not double engine. It's a quadruple engine. There's investment, there's consumption, that's government as well as private, and there's international trade. Now, all these engines of growth...
Which is the fourth one?
Except government investment.
Which is the fourth engine? You have said only 3 so far. Look at the paper.
Sorry, sir?
You have named 4 engines, but referred only 3 by name. Which is the fourth engine?
No. I said there is investment engine, there is consumption engine, there is government expenditure engine, and there's international trade engine. I said it.
On a lighter note, are you
So
the fourth engine?
all engines of growth are not firing at the same speed. This finance minister has accelerated the speed of the government capital expenditure engine, but the private investment engine is not growing, is not going fast. The private consumption engine is not going fast, and of course the international trade, over which she has little control, is not growing fast. However, the example of the garment industry shows that the problems of growth lie not so much in external markets, but in what we do internally. So I would again say, sir, the intent of the budget is one thing. The content of the budget is quite different. And the content of the budget has to address these 4 fundamental issues that I have raised.